Hey, Chris Lipe here to share with you 3 potential reasons that when you try to sing with distortion, you hurt yourself. But I'm not just going to stop at the reasons why it may hurt. I'm going to help you correct each scenario so that you don't hurt when you try to sing with distortion. Now, first of all, if you're trying to sing with distortion, grit, and aggression, but you aren't 100% sure that you've dialed in your support correctly, that you understand breath support and transferring between different resonances, these are fundamental singing techniques and concepts that you really need to have down before you try to sing properly and safely with grit and distortion. So, if you need help developing some of that stuff, be sure to click the link below and join my free vocal course. Reason number 1, your voice might be hurting when you try to sing with distortion. You're trying to be Cookie Monster. Cookie Monster is bad long term for singing with grit, singing with distortion. It's never the right way to do it for long periods of time. You might hear some people, some singers, some really famous singers, do something like, hey, yeah. They might do something like that. Now, that's okay for really short periods of time. To me, it's not really my favorite way to make a gritty sounding distortion, but some people like to do that. The problem with Cookie Monster is that it happens below your voice box. That's where you'll feel it if you're trying to get grit in that way. Doing it that way is not using the right mechanisms in your throat to create that sound. It's probably the easiest one to stumble upon, but it's going to fry your vocal cords. It's going to tire them. It's going to swell them up very quickly. So that's the first reason. Don't do Cookie Monster. Don't get the grit from below your voice box. Second reason you might be hurting when you try to sing with distortion. You're using too much air instead of holding back air. Really good, consistent distortion comes from properly dialing in the compression technique, the vocal compression technique. I've talked about this some on other videos, but in the context specifically of distortion, it's incredibly useful. So a lot of people think that to add distortion, you just push more and get louder. Ah! And now I've got... Now, the problem is, what I've done there, that's actually just a version of Cookie Monster. That grit is coming from pushing so much air through that my actual vocal cords are starting to freak out a little bit, and it hurts. It hurts right away. That's not how we want to get distortion. It also doesn't sound that great, and I'm pushing a lot of air through right there. So what we want to do instead is we want to practice holding a pitch and then hold back air. Like this, like I'm lifting something heavy, or I'm pushing poop out my butt. Okay, now we're going to hold back so much air that that same mechanism that we're using to hold back the air that's above where we feel our primary voice box, we're going to hold back so much air that we start to fry out a little bit. That's the right distortion. It's coming from above my voice box, not below. No, that's just Cookie Monster again. But now I'm being extreme with it. You don't have to hold back that much air to access that grit. Although, once you seamlessly understand how to control that, you're able to project it as an open sounding voice, even with compression-based distortion, compression-based grit. All of that is compression-based, not Cookie Monster-based. Reason number 3 that when you try to sing with distortion, you might feel pain is this. You might be trying to get into the gritty distortion vibe using pitches that are too low. This is a huge, huge problem because we listen to singers, and I've covered some of them on this channel, where they're super gritty and awesome sounding in lower chestier notes. And we want to do that. I don't want to be gritty only when I'm high. I want to be gritty when I'm low too. Well, you have to get the feel by learning how your voice works and learning that there's a certain sweet spot just before you transfer into your head resonance where it's easier to get these mechanisms, your vocal fry mechanisms, your compression mechanisms dialed in. So if you think higher when you're trying to dial in these things first and then go lower, you heard me do that earlier in this video also, things are going to fall into place easier. When we try to dial in this stuff in a lower pitch first because we're listening to some other singer and trying to imitate them, we end up using too much air and we end up defaulting to Cookie Monster. We end up doing two things we don't want to do. So try, when you're dialing this stuff in, to do it on a pitch that's just below where you'd break into your head resonance. So for me, that would be maybe la, pretty high note. La. Now I'm going to hold back air. La. A nice subtle grit right there. La. Now, as I push higher in pitch, now that I've got that little bit of fry introduced there, based on compression, I can then bring in what I like to call super grit, and you've seen me do other videos on this, where I start exploiting my vocal break to create this amazing, loose-sounding, big-sounding, broken-up voice. And that doesn't hurt my voice at all. I could do that for a long time. It's every bit as comfortable as singing without grit, without fry, because I've got the things in the right places to make the sound. Again, if you want more help developing the foundational aspects of singing so that this kind of thing can be a reality in your own voice, be sure to click my link below for the free vocal course. Let me know if you have any questions and if you have any suggestions for other videos. We'll see you for more real soon.